Okay, so we are live on our first district-wide drop-in session. I'm joined here with Kristen, Harmon, Dylan, Pauly, and Gina, Hurley. Bear with us on all of this because this is the first time we are trying this new platform of StreamYard. It's new for us, but as audience members, you can just type in this. You should see a sidebar where it says live comments, which is really the chat function. If you want to enter in some questions or some comments, we can definitely just pull those right out of the live comment section and address those during our drop-in session. That's kind of how we envisioned this. We also want to try this platform out because we can see that we can see whether or not it makes sense for us to use this as a venue for graduation, should we need to do that at the end of June. So with that, I'm going to open it up. Kristen, Dylan, Gina, you want to say a few words?
Sure. Don't all jump at once, right? Everybody that's watching, I hope you're all well and kind of excited about this opportunity, but it feels funny not seeing everyone else's faces. So knowing you're out there, please reach out to us for anything and send some questions so that we can answer them and chat about them.
Hi, everyone. I would say nice to see you, but as Kristen said, we don't get to see you, so we don't know who's on the other end. I, too, hope you're well and that finally the weather is nice enough that you're able to get outside and get some fresh air and do some activities besides looking at a screen. And yeah, please put your comments in the live chat box and we'll try to respond to them.
Hi, everybody, and ditto to all of the above.
Great. So until we start seeing some questions or comments that, hi, Pam Peek says she can see us. Thanks, Pam. We wish we could see you. We thought we would talk a little bit about our community read that the Teaching and Learning Subcommittee has been working on over the past couple of weeks. So Kristen, do you want to sort of talk about the background on that and the vision for moving the community read forward?
Absolutely. So the community read is geared for our K-5 students and families. The thinking behind, so it was the work of the Elementary Teaching and Learning Subcommittee, and largely the thinking behind it was how can we bring all of our students and families together through a common experience when we are not when we're in some uncommon times. So how do we collect everyone with really when we're distant. Actually, I have my book right here, our community read, Fish in a Tree. So we will be starting next week, right now, all of our families, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, our K5 families are picking up not only the book, but some school supplies, and starting the week of the 26th, 25th, really Memorial Day. All of our students will start digging into Fish in a Tree. And it's a great book. It's about growth mindset. It really builds around a lot of our SEL curriculum work. There's so many connections and really excited to get it underway, both for our students, our families, and our staff. So that's in a nutshell, but I'll answer any questions on it.
Gina, maybe you can talk a little bit about, this morning we were talking about the SEL connection with the community read. What are the opportunities there from your perspective?
There are so many opportunities, and I'd like to say that we've been using the acronym SEL for a few years now in the district, but we've also talked about SEED, Social Emotional Academic Development, and we have our SEED coaches. And I remember when we were establishing the coaches, I had asked you, Meg, should we call them SEL coaches? And you said, no, it's really the integration of SEL with academic development. And I really believe that this book, this community read, embodies that. It's definitely the connection between social emotional learning and academic development. So we're taking all of the SEL competencies that we are typically teaching at most often the pre-K to 7 level, the area of social awareness and responsible decision making, building relationships, perseverance, growth mindset, as Kristen said. All of those competencies that we teach, we're actually now being able to see and read about with this particular book and the characters within this book. And so it's actually giving life to a lot of those competencies and experiences to those competencies that students have been hearing about, but haven't really had as many opportunities, because we keep growing those opportunities, but as many opportunities to develop. And if there's one thing that I would take away as a positive from this pandemic, if there can be a positive, is that this community read has given us an opportunity for that, because I honestly don't think we would have been here, landed here, without this pandemic. So when you do a little bit of research, for those of you who are listening and want to research a little bit more about the book, you'll understand how these connections between SEL and reading and SEL and students and SEL and education all sort of is intertwined together in this book. So it's, I think as Beth Forbes says in the video that we did on this book, that the book actually picked us at this time.
And there's some local connections to the book, true, right?
Correct. So the author actually has some local connections with the Cape. And she's so excited. The author, Linda Mullally Hunt, is so excited that Barnstable has selected her book for this opportunity for our students. And so she is committed to supporting us in this work. So as we think about coming back to school in the fall, we may have an author visit, whether it's in person or via video, since we're really getting good at that. But again, you know, thinking about coming back to school and having all of our K-5 students have this opportunity to have a common experience and walk back into schools where they haven't been there in quite some time is, again, just another way that this community read serves as just a nice anchor for students. I think it can really anchor them as they enter through the doors, and all of our teachers are going to be engaged in the reading as well. All of our staff at the K-5 level. And so we're hoping for that common language, just that common connection. So many real creative, neat ideas for us to begin this read, carry it through the summer, and return to school with it as well.
So, Kristen, what do you think are what are you most excited about in terms of the activities coming up in the community read?
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but
a little away.
Well, you know, one of the things we were talking about is just, you know, engaging in that active reading, whether it's individually in your quiet corner or with your family or virtually with a group of friends. But we were thinking about asking families to just take a quick picture and put together some kind of slideshow, whether it's occurring, you know, now or we save that till start of school year. One of the kind of art connections was, and I can't remember what town it was, but they were putting pictures in the window, drawings in the window. So we were thinking about having kids draw pictures of fish and put them in the window, so you know which families and households are participating in the community read. You know, so just little things like that. But it truly is turning into a community event where we'll have YouTube channels set up for taped readings of chapters from the book. So we have the book being read in English, we have the book being read in Portuguese, and we have the book being read in Spanish. So you can access that at any time. And we have families and community members who have offered to do various chapters. And so it really has this opportunity to bring so many people together. So it makes you feel good. It's a really feel-good activity, and I just think there's so much to it, and we're not going to know how much there is to it until we actually are in it. So.
Now, Dylan, you have a dual role as both a working here and as a parent. Will you be participating in the community read?
We will be. We are swinging by at the pickup hours tomorrow at the garage at BUES to get our book and our supplies. And I've gone on to some of the YouTube stuff. I see Heather was talking about the author reading the chapters on YouTube, and we have gone and looked at those with my 5th grader. So we are super excited to get away from Diary of the Wimpy Kid books that I haven't been able to pry out of their hands and into another book. So yeah, we're super excited.
Great.
I would like to thank Heather for reminding us of our connection, our local connection with Titcomb's bookstore, because they really were a great partner in making this purchase possible. So.
And what do you think the summer might look like with the community read?
Well, as
is everyone going to finish the book before June 18th?
Absolutely not. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I think we might have some students that are going to get into this book and they are just going to not be able to put it down, because I started reading it and one chapter just brings you into another and brings you into another. But in terms of the remote learning plans, we'll be about halfway through the book. And then, as one of our elementary principals said, how do we hook, little play on words, how do we hook our students to get them to continue into the summer with this book? And we'll have some summer learning opportunities for students, again, connected through this text to carry us back into the opening of school in the fall.
Right. So shifting gears just a little bit, we've all been in contact with educators and staff who are, working sort of day in and day out to make remote learning come alive for our students. And I'm just curious, from your 3 perspectives, just if we can share, what have you heard about sort of the successes and the challenges of remote learning right now?
Well, I can start. I think that there certainly is that range of some successes, some challenges. What I've personally seen through my students is their engagement in the Zoom meetings. And I think that what both students and what I'm hearing from educators is that while it's new, it's a little different and starting to get into those routines and expectations around Zoom, but the students are so excited to be able to connect with their teachers and their friends in this virtual way. And I think that there's, some of it is the academic lessons and some is that opportunity for the drop-in and just a team time almost. And so to see them and hear them laugh and, enjoy that time and that connection. But I think we're all navigating this new territory. And I am just so amazed by both our staff and students in terms of their bravery. It's not easy. And it's new work and it's new territory, but everyone is willing to put themselves out there and take that risk. And I think we're seeing the rewards from it.
And I would say, as to follow up on that, the word connections is so important. And I think, teachers being able and all staff members being able to connect with their students and students being able to see their teachers and teacher assistants and principals and school counselors and social workers, obviously in a different light, but still being able to connect with them is so very important. I think the challenge is still about connections, because it's not the same type of connection. It's not the same amount of connection. The relationships that typically would happen during the school day, all the building of those relationships are not happening in the same exact way. So there's the strength of all the work that we're doing for those relationships to happen, but then there's still my wonderment about how much of the relationships are, do we need to continue to work on when we do get back to school, to schools being open, the physical plant being open, and what that might look like. But I did get to attend a morning meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I too am just amazed at the skill set of our teachers in being able to connect with students, develop remote learning plans. I was in a kindergarten morning meeting Zoom class, which to me just sounds impossible to do. To have 20 kids sitting there and participating, and to all the staff that were participating, they really engaged the students. So it was all hands on deck, but it was very well done, and I can't wait to join again another meeting.
Yeah, as a parent, I've just been so impressed by our educators' ability to balance both their own lives and working from home with the high quality resources that are being provided for our kiddos. Wow, my 6th grader just got a handwritten postcard from one of his teachers, and it's just super cool to continue to make those types of connections. And, I think the challenges are the scheduling, right? The scheduling continues to be a challenge. How do you balance your own Google Meets with your kids' Google Meets and 3 kids' Google Meets, and who gets the Wi-Fi and who has to wait? They've just been impressed with each week how nimble and adaptive everyone seems to be. We kind of hit one hurdle next week, and there's a solution that has been worked through by our educators to kind of work around that the very following week. And so, I think some of the challenges will kind of unfold as we see about equity of access. But I think that, at least from my perspective as a parent, kind of one of my kids is engaging more than the other, and just the efforts to kind of figure out how to hook the one. I've just been really deeply impressed. And I think one of my kiddos' teachers kind of put together a collection of some of the awesome assignments that were turned in this week, and just to be able to sit down and have a conversation about elephant toothpaste and who did it and who didn't. And it's been super awesome. So from a parent perspective, thank you. And from a professional perspective, thank you again for taking the work that we're doing one step removed from the classroom and putting it into practice, so that we can just see the amazing adaptability of our workforce.
And if there's anyone out there that has questions for us about remote learning or about next steps, just put them in the chat box, and we'll try and answer them as a group. So we watched, the governor had a press conference today about, reopening, with not a lot of news for us in terms of what next steps might look like for us, because, we're anxious to continue to support student learning. And then we know we have summer learning opportunities coming up. And so we don't quite know what that is going to look like. There was some conversation about opening camps and daycare toward the end of June, but nothing specific about summer school. We, of course, are going to take all of our advice and guidance from the medical experts and that we've been relying on thus far. So we're not looking to do anything that would be that would compromise the situation that we're in, but I know we're all anxious to make sure that teaching and learning is continuing. And I think the summer presents a unique opportunity to keep pushing the agenda around learning. I think, the one thing I continue to hear from parents is, are there going to be, or what are we going to do, right, as a district and schools, what are we going to do about the learning gaps that are coming in the fall as a result of some loss of learning during this time. I think an interesting idea that we've been talking about, that the principals have talking about, maybe we could talk a little bit about this here, is the idea of looping or keeping students together in their same classes as they move from one grade to another. I think that's a little more challenging as our students would be transitioning from fifth to sixth grade, and obviously to the high school. But I know that the idea of looping seems to be gaining more traction in the district. Some teachers have been talking about, can I have my same kids again at the high school level? For some educators, that might not be an ideal situation. I think it depends on the class that you have. Let's open it up a little bit about looping. Good idea, not good idea? I mean, what do you guys think as we wait for perhaps some to comment on the idea of looping?
Well, I'll jump in because again, from the social emotional side of things, like relationships are so very important. And we ended school, we ended the physical aspect of being together very, very quickly. I was looking back at an email and I said, when we come back in a couple of weeks, we'll do X, Y, and Z, not even having any really idea that we would be out for so long. So from a student's perspective, the not saying goodbye, the lack of interaction that I already talked about is sort of chipping away at those relationships. So anything that we can do to continue to build those. So whether that's looping with the same teacher, or for those third graders going on to fourth grade, or those fifth graders going up to sixth, or even seventh up to eighth, how can we keep them connected with their peers to at least feel like they're a solid group, a connected group, so that with all the changes that are coming, they still have those relationships as a core or something to rely on that isn't going to be something else that they're going to have to figure out or to learn, and they'll have that as a stable part of their reentry into school. So I'm in favor of anything that could give our students more connections when they come back physically.
And thanks, Diane. Diane posted a comment that certification could become an issue when looping, right? So particularly if you've got that pre-K to, is it pre-K to 2? No, I'm just trying to, and then we've got the elementary license. And then I know at BIS, we've talked about, the grade 6, is it an elementary license? Is it a middle school license? We can do some more thinking about the certification piece of it. If teachers are interested in it. I think particularly now I've seen the Commissioner of Education and Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, be far more flexible and put, certainly with the well-being of students in the forefront of our decision-making. I think we could probably work with the department if there was a certification issue, if we're able to make the case that this is in the best interest of students, that they stay with their teacher or stay with their classmates as they move to the next grade level. So, Sarah, is the ideal student group looping or looping the teachers along with the students? What do you guys think?
Well, I think we've discussed both options, right?
Yeah.
And we've looked at looping the groups of students. And I think some of this speaks to the certification where we can't necessarily uproot teachers as well to move to a different building if we're looking third to fourth, something like that. So we're looking at moving student groups. And I think in settings where we're able to actually move the teachers with the students, the conversation has been around both. And I think it really just depends on the situation. I think both are viable.
And Brooke, hi, Brooke. Brooke, maybe, Jim, you can put Brooke's comment up on the screen. She's all in for ninth graders and volunteered to do it. It's not perfect for all. There might be have been some classes that weren't the right chemistry and need a break from each other. That's for sure, right? So yeah. I think, we should, if educators are interested in looping, to please have a conversation with your principal or department head. I mean, I think it's an idea worth pursuing. We don't want to force fit anything. Our philosophy during this time, in the way that we're working, has been professional judgment. So in your professional judgment, if it wasn't the right chemistry, let's not keep that going. But in your professional judgment, if you'd like to, loop with your students, I think that's certainly worth, having conversations about.
Mm-hmm.
So. Always good to see you, Brooke. I also want to take the opportunity, since we're in a district-wide drop-in session, to make sure that folks know, I think Brooke has been on every subcommittee we've had at the district level. So we kind of joke around with her now about seeing her so often, because she is really adding her voice as a representative for all of her members and as a teacher to every subcommittee that we've launched, whether it's teaching and learning, student support, human resources, MOA development, you name it, Brooke's been on it. So hi, Brooke. So Julie's talking a little bit about looping, and that makes me think about talking a little bit about Barnstable Intermediate School and the neighborhood. So I guess today we're able to publicly announce that BIS is a recipient of the Mass Ideas implementation grant. So woohoo, that's great. That grant, what, Kristen, is about $350,000?
Yes, 374.
374, and they've worked on it really hard. The school had a planning grant and took great advantage of the planning grant, positioned themselves well to apply for the implementation grant. And so the implementation grant supports a position or two for sure, but I think the great components of it are the restructuring or redesign of the school that the educators have come up with. So Julie mentions the neighborhood idea. So Kristen, maybe you could talk a little bit about what we mean when we say neighborhoods in that grant.
Right. So, I mean, first of all, I would like to congratulate the BIS team. It was just an amazing amount of work, and it's just an amazing product, and it's just exciting work ahead. For anyone who doesn't know about Mass Ideas, the whole idea is re-envisioning and school redesign. What can school look like? I think we're getting a crash course on what school can look like right now, but the neighborhoods is a key piece of the Mass Ideas work, and it's taking a traditional sixth grade team of 100 students and a seventh grade team, and putting them together as a neighborhood, so that it's kind of that idea of a school within a school, but it's, instead of just staying with your grade level, you've got this larger group that you're connected with. Again, just starting to think about the return to school. And so now the idea is to take the existing sixth grade teams, and they would move up to seventh grade together and depending on how the staff structuring happens, they could very well be going with their sixth grade teachers who would still teach sixth grade, but they'd be paired with a new seventh grade group. I'm not doing a very good job with this one, but the idea is that the students would still be connected with their sixth grade teachers who they so abruptly had to leave, and they'd still have their core group of 100 students that they just spent 3/4 of this past year with. And so again, when you think about re-entering school and having something to kind of firmly anchor yourself with, you've got your peers that you've spent this time with and are now Zooming with, and looking into their homes and connecting in just such different ways. And now to come back to school in the fall with that same group of students, I just feel like it's an experience that they, again, can connect to, reflect back to, and it'll just make that transition, I would hope, easier, or I would think easier, because of that already existing connection. And they still have their sixth grade teachers nearby in that neighborhood setting, nearby to check in, connect with, just that security blanket, kind of a safety net idea. It's just really exciting to think about the ways in which this forward thinking of the group can really assist with our reentry plan at BIS.
The redesign at BIS through the Mass Ideas would impact the way students enter the high school eventually?
I didn't catch the beginning part of your question. You
Do
lost it, or I did.
Do you see ways in which that students who leave BIS and enter the high school eventually, will there be an impact at the high school level as a result of the redesign work at BIS?
Well, I would say that, where this year was a planning grant, there was that initial kind of entry point into some thinking about their learning. And so their own readiness for the next level for moving to the high school. In terms of grouping students together, I haven't been a part of any conversations of, how 7th grade would travel to 8th grade, obviously different structures. But I mean, I certainly think that a lot of the work, whether it's Connect with Mass Ideas or the other ASA grant, I think just starting students thinking down that path of careers and thinking about how that might, high school is that middle point to set them on that course for a career in college. So I think that some of the opportunities students have had with the career explorations and the community careers day that they had not too long before the closure, really sets students up to be ready for high school and thinking about their course selection. So I think in that way, for sure, we really, it'll be really interesting because I think the students have a good sense of what is available to them at the high school level. And I think in terms of Mass Ideas, well, that has set them up as well, but I think we'll really see that in the coming years with the redesign and the students taking control of their learning, really taking the lead and taking that leadership role. So I really think it'll set them up well for the high school level.
So Kristen, that kind of segues in. Can you see Pam's, maybe Jim, you could put Pam's question up there. Since Kristen, you mentioned 7th moving into 8th.
How would we work from 7th to 8th grade when we... So there is no leveling. So my phone's ringing in the background, if you can hear it, sorry. So there is no leveling in 7th grade. So that's true. In terms of transitioning to 8th grade, where did Meg go? Sorry. Yep, on the fly. So in terms of moving into 8th grade, I think that it's all of our expectations for students. And, while we have that leveling in 8th grade, it's the communication of our expectations and what we're holding students to and what we're outlining for the work ahead. It really threw me off, Meg.
I'm at the office, very shaky internet. Sorry.
So I'm not sure I did a very good job of answering that question. So again, I think looping in the traditional manner, how we were talking about looping either group of students or looping teachers. I think that we'd have to be really creative in terms of what that would look like at the 8th grade level. So I would love to have some conversations and think about really how could we be creative And again, it's one of those points in time where we do have students with this abrupt end, and now we're moving them to a new school to start. You know, we've talked about that with our 5th going into 6th grade. But I also would say on the heels of that, we have our community read that all of our incoming 6th graders are going to have that connection. So what is, you know, I think if we start thinking creatively, you know, what is that connection we can be either developing or that already exists with our 7th graders that can help with that entry into the high school?
Right. And Julie's commenting that 7th grade students were much more mindful of course selection after seeing the career ambassadors from the different pathways. So that's, you know, we're often talking at the district level about how can we support schools building these bridges between 5th to 6th grade, 7th to 8th grade, 3rd to 4th grade. And I think the work around BIS has had such a strong focus on how can, you know, they really serve this dual purpose, right, of welcoming kids from the 5th grade into the school, but also build, you know, transitioning students to be ready for their high school experience. So it seems on the comments, folks are, you know, looping and variations of looping are of interest, and that we should keep having the conversation about it.
And I definitely think that transition from 7th to 8th grade, you know, really digging a little bit more into that would be a great place to focus some more conversation on.
Yeah. And then, so we're not getting too many more sort of questions or comments, and I know we've got sort of maybe 25 so are watching, and so I don't want to like torture us and keep going if there's not a big draw to have the drop-in session. So I think we're going to wrap up unless there's anything that the 3 of you specifically want to use this time to talk about.
Meg, I was just curious if you would like to talk about maybe some of the conversations we've had about, you know, end of year sort of closure and the conversations we've had with principals about trying to come up with a way where we can celebrate the closure of the year, knowing that we're not all with our students going to be together.
Right. So I think, you know, we've been trying to brainstorm ideas. Admittedly, one of our biggest focus areas is the class of 2020 and the graduation. You know, what will graduation look like? The school committee moved the graduation date to June 27th. So hopefully by that time we would have we'll have some more options per se. But Gina, you've been so good just to, you know, continually remind us about ways that we can think about putting closure on the year. So maybe you can share some of the ideas that you've talked about with principals.
Yeah, I'll share. Yes, not yeah. Yes, I will share them, and hopefully people can put in the comments any other ideas. You know, one of the challenges is following the guidelines of the state. And Pam Saborowski and Dr. Rudman have been fabulous in advising us and coming up with plans. So we've talked about, you know, other districts have talked about doing sort of car parades and the challenges that brings when you're, you know, really from 4th grade on up for those buildings. It's very hard to do a car parade for going around the entire district and hitting every student's home. So we have been talking about perhaps a reverse type of parade where the families come to the school property and drive around the school property, and we have teachers and educators, all of our staff. If we can get sort of a physical distance type of plan in place where maybe it's, you know, 1 grade level at a time at a different time of day, and those teachers and educators are there to wave goodbye and close out the year. So we've thought about some of those options, but we are looking for creative ideas. And if your principals haven't reached out to you yet, because we're just on the cusp of trying to get to that conversation. We really do want to have an opportunity to close out the year and have an end to it and celebrate it. I know it's been very difficult for everybody, but a celebration. Kids and teachers and educators have put in a lot of time in their learning, so we want to make sure that that happens. We're not going to be able to do field days. We're not going to be able to do field trips, which is typically this time of year. So what ideas might we be able to have? And so if you want to either put those in the comment box or send them off to your principals, that would be great. We are spending a little bit more time on the class of 2020, and I know Pat Clark has a committee that's working on that, but certainly for all the other grade levels and all of the educators that have put in a year's worth of work, we'd like to celebrate that as well.
Great. Okay, so Jim Gilbert has asked me if anyone wants to comment on this platform. Jim, I don't know if you want to show yourself on the screen. He's sort of the man behind the curtain running the platform for us. Hey, there you are. So what do you think, Jim? Oh, unmute.
Oh, who's running the show now? I think it's pretty cool. I really like the opportunity to be able to show the comments. I'm watching on the other side on another computer about what's happening, and I can see how many people. We've been on the air for 41 minutes. We maxed out at about 30 people. I'd like to get that number up, of course, but I think it's pretty cool from my side.
And Jim, this was your first experience with it?
Meg sent me an email 2.5 weeks ago to start researching it. And this is our first, live to YouTube broadcast with multiple presenters, taking the live comments. And, this was the guinea pig run of how to integrate these live comments and respond to them. And I think it happened pretty naturally. You just told me which ones to put up, and I did it. And
so, Jim, you see Heather Ray's comment there. BUES is planning virtual field day. Could you see this kind of format in virtual field? I think what I like about this is that it can be broadcast, right? So if there's a virtual field day, for example, this could be, you could watch it on YouTube later rather than Zoom or Google Meet. Right?
That is correct.
Something that even your channel could broadcast and rebroadcast as you do other things.
Yes. So not only can you watch it as a YouTube live stream if you want to be present right then and there, it's archived to YouTube and you can watch it again later. And yes, I can have the original file and distribute it to other channels as well.
So it will live forever.
It's on the internet, Gina. It's on the internet.
So, Jim, should folks so if schools are interested in using this platform for broadcast purposes, for example, should they contact you? Like, what's the best way to go about it?
Well, thank you so much for asking. If anyone in the district, because Channel 22 is a district entity and anybody in the district is therefore a member of Channel 22, whatever needs you may have at your school, whether to broadcast or to get evidentiary support or whatever the case may be, we are here for you as your video resource.
That sounded like a commercial, Jim.
I want my phone to ring.
Well, Meg, you had said we will probably be doing this with families at some point, right?
Right. So we were thinking possibly next week to host something similar to this, but put it out to all families. So if families wanted to jump on and provide some commentary or questions or whatever, we can take those and have a conversation. I think the challenge for me, it's hard not to see another person's face that's asking a question, right? You don't get that. You just get the written piece of it. I think the other benefit of this platform as we're exploring it is that it's unlimited in terms of the number of people that can join in. We're not maxed out by any audience size. So I think that's something to consider as well. But so we'll keep plugging away with it. We'll do something for parents possibly next week and think about what the format and content of that would be. And we'll go from there. Hold. Give your back. But muted.
I'll learn. I will learn. I promise.
You're the expert in all of this.
Well, I'm supposed to be quiet most of the time.
Yeah.
Some of these comments. Oh, here we go. They made it. This was a good question.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Diane. Yep, we can put that out for our next one and ask. And I think that could even work with our family group. Okay. No, Brooke.
Yeah.
We can't see who is watching. We can only see who is commenting, which is the oddity of all of this.
Yeah, that's you can see it as sort of how many users there are, but you can't tell who it is.
Okay, well, let's go up to Kim's first question about thanks. I just got on any dates of when we should know about school. Well, the date that we're ending is June 18th. That remains. That's for certain. Not a lot of new information about what we're permitted to do in terms of summer or what school reopening is going to look like. I know there's a lot of work being done at the state level to take a look at some options for school reopening. Also, if we wanted to take a class, are the monies still frozen? Yes, the monies are still frozen, except there's a bit of a caveat. If you're in a master's degree program, we don't want to hold that up, so that monies are available for tuition reimbursement for if you're in your grad program. However, what we've been asked to do is to really freeze all of our spending, because as we take a look at the next fiscal year, this coming, as of July 1, and probably the fiscal year after, as everyone knows, the economy is suffering because of the pandemic. And so we have to be very strategic and thoughtful about how we're spending money. So basically, we've frozen what we can this school year so that we have, just sort of in very simplistic terms, more money to roll over into next year. Our approach during this process has been, we want to preserve jobs for all of our educators and all of our staff. About 80% of our budget is our people, and we want to be sure that all of our people remain employed. And in order to do that, we're having to, make some adjustments in other areas. So typical sort of professional development reimbursement or course reimbursement is frozen, again, unless you're in a master's degree program. So, and then Kimberly's other question, will we have time to clean out your classrooms? Absolutely. We'll just have to figure out what that looks like. I think, folks know that we've been able to open up schools to get materials. We're doing that through precautionary measures. We do envision that there's going to be an opportunity for educators and staff to go back into schools and to clean out classrooms and do things in preparation of next year. We're sort of taking a long view in terms of doing that with folks, because again, just hoping that later in June, we'll have a better sense from the state in terms of what we're able to do. So I think we have most of our questions. that have been answered. Thanks, Julie. Appreciate your participation. And again, I think Diane's question around topics or questions to be submitted in advance is a great idea. So we'll do that for our next one as well. Any closing comments from my 3 partners on the screen?
Well,
I liked Kim's comment, so thank you, Kim, that we're doing an awesome job.
And the one thing I just want to do is just thank everyone. Thanks for participating in this, but thank everyone for the work they're doing, because I know just in some of the communications that have been shared that everyone is very aware of our families and our students and what's happening. And just that just speaks volumes of who you are as teachers, educators, and who we are as a district. So thank you for all of that.
And I'll echo that, because if when we take a look at the survey results that came in terms of the way that our students and our educators and staff and parents and families are feeling about remote learning and about making the best out of the circumstance that we're all in, I think the survey results for us have given us a lot to consider, but it's also affirmed the work that all of our educators and staff are doing in terms of it just hitting that sort of just right mark with students and families. So thank you for that work, and thank you for thinking of the broader needs of students and families as we make our way through the school year. So thank you. Okay, with that, Jim, I think we're signing off. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.